I'm sorry to tell you that you won't be able to earn CLE credit for watching our Vid-Guides no matter how much you learn from them. Let me explain why today on Zippy Point.
Quick Zips by Zippy Point.
Quick and dirty. I'm Brock Romanek and I'm a big fan of yous. So I've been in the conference business for a few decades now, so I'm all too aware of the racket that is the continuing legal education business, commonly known as CLE. For those of you out there who don't know, in the United States, one doesn't automatically become a lawyer once you graduate law school. You must pass one of the state bar examinations to practice law. Each state bar is somewhat different than the others, including the level of the pass rate. And each state bar's exam is run by that state's bar association. Once you pass a bar exam, you are licensed to practice law in that state. And to keep your license, you need to earn a certain number of credits of CLE each year. Some states forego this CLE requirement completely. Some states are pretty accommodating in what they count towards earning CLE, but a whole lot of states have fairly narrow and outdated requirements. On the whole, the state bar associations really aren't too concerned that you are keeping up with the latest developments in your field, that you're continuing to learn. They are far more interested in making money approving the programs. There is a registration fee to seek accreditation of a program. And these accredited programs, that's how lawyers earn their CLE. So it's a money grab, pure and simple. So why do I say that? Because the accreditation requirements typically are not geared towards ensuring that the program is of high quality. The accreditation requirements really don't match how folks typically learn. And you can see why I say this when you see that the requirements are far outdated, are not wed to actually quality programming. Let me parse a few examples. One, a typical requirement is that there must be the ability to interact with the speakers. Not that there is actual interaction, that the ability must be there. But why is interaction necessary? People just rarely ask questions at these conferences. They'd rather have one-on-one conversations, or they just simply are there to earn the CLE. They just don't want to interact. It's true that asking questions might improve the learning experience, but only on the margins anyways. The quality of the planned programming is what matters the most by far, in my humble opinion. And then I'll ask, would interaction through comments on a YouTube video count? Not the way the accreditation requirements work. They're not updated enough to consider that. And I'd argue that interaction through the back and forth of comments on videos is the equivalent of asking a question at a conference, except they're, in my opinion, even of higher value because they are more permanent. They're easier to access than even an archived event that's on video where a question is asked of the speaker and it's buried in the midst of a video. With the comments under a YouTube video, you can just quickly scan and see. Here's another thing. Number two, for some reason, there's almost always a requirement that there be written materials included. Written materials. Some people learn better through audio, through video. It's an unnecessary requirement in my book. I learn better through stories, anecdotes, the processing of situational circumstances, and I think I'm not alone here. And how can you do that in writing? It's really hard to do, at least for lawyers. They just don't write like that. The written materials typically are just research materials, and they're just not that engaging. Blech. Dude, no one reads those materials. Move on. Right, how many people actually read the written materials that they get at a conference, right? It's like showing up to your first day of a physics class in 10th grade and they hand you the textbook and they pat you on the back for just receiving the textbook. Congrats, you've made it. Mr. Han, I've already passed the class. 3, another silly requirement is there needs to be the ability to hand in a written evaluation. Talk about archaic. People don't bother to evaluate a program. People really don't bother to do it almost ever. So I do see the value in using evaluations as a way to gauge whether a program is of value, but the reality is that no one does it. So it's just a silly requirement. 4, the conference provider must provide a certificate of attendance. Sounds like the 1950s, what? Right, bro? At the end of the day, the acid test for me is to whether CLE truly matters is the perspective of the client. Do they inquire? Do they ask their lawyer as to whether they are caught up with their CLE? Do they seem concerned that their lawyer is caught up with the latest developments? I think not. No one ever talks to someone else about CLE other than the pain that it is. So I'll tell you, this CLE stuff is making a lot of people a lot of money. Some of these multi-day conferences today now run just a hair under $3,000. $3,000. Sadly, I don't have the resources to negotiate with 50 bar associations to keep up with each state bar's set of Byzantine rules, their complicated procedures, in order to offer CLE for my Vid-Guides. So is it time for a change? I think so. Ask your state bar to modernize, to eliminate CLE requirements altogether, and let me know what you think.